Oh my God, you're gonna love it.
Hey there, and welcome to the AI Chicks, where we're providing you cool conversations about AI for all, with every episode covering a different topic on how AI is impacting your and our daily lives. I'm your host, Aisha Wynn, always coming in with that fun, unique perspective on tech, and I have my amazing co-host as always.
Hi guys, I'm Lana Hout, and I'm bringing the curls, the charisma, and that entrepreneurial energy.
I am hoarse. You guys are hearing a raspy Aisha, but this episode was so important that I had to power through my laryngitis that I've had for weeks to keep this episode going, because we are discussing AI and information equity. Super important, you guys.
Yes, our guest today is Esosa Osa, the founder and CEO of Onyx Impact.
All right, so let's get into it.
So we have Esosa Osa here with us. Esosa, it's so nice to meet you.
I'm so excited to be here, y'all. Thank you.
Yes, welcome to the AI Chicks. I thought we would start off with first you introducing yourself and telling our listeners a little bit about your background.
Absolutely. My name is Esosa Osa. I'm the founder and CEO of Onyx Impact. We are a research and digital innovation lab that is focused on creating healthier online communities for Black folks and fighting disinformation, targeting our community. We're all about how do we create resources, guides, technology that can help Black folks made for us and by us in this increasingly hostile digital environment. So I am so excited to be here and talk about some of the work that we've been doing.
We're excited to have you.
Yes. And right off the bat, we have this thing that we do every episode to induct our guests into the AI squad, is give them a nickname. However, Esosa Osa, we are stumped. This is the first time ever on any episode of the AI Chicks where our guest has such an amazing, spectacular name. Do we even give this person a nickname?
I mean, you have a really cool name. Yeah. I'm sure you must hear that all the time. Esosa Osa.
Her name is already so special. But just for the fun of it, have you ever had a nickname?
I've had plenty of nicknames. They usually, it's not going to surprise anybody, Sosa, Sos, Osa, whatever, depending on the community, depending on the type of person. But, I've always been Esosa Nosa Osa.
Oh, see, this girl, she got a cool name. Cool name. Wait, is your full name Esosa Nosa Osa?
Yes, the last time I checked, it was. And
I'm just saying, your name just gets cooler and cooler. Most people do not get their names being cooler and cooler as you add more names.
As you add the middle name?
Yeah.
Let me tell you, I had no choice in the matter.
Your parents did good.
Yeah. And culturally, what's the background of your name?
My parents are Nigerian. My name means God's gift, but let's be 100% clear. People's names in Nigeria don't rhyme.
Okay, this is not like a typical Nigerian situation where everyone's just rhyming around. Okay.
Nah, my brother's middle name is Newton. I got lucky.
Yes, you did. Well, all right. Well, you guys, for the first time ever on the AI Chicks, we are sticking to the person's full legal government name that was given to them by their parents. We are inducting Esosa Nosa Osa into the AI Chicks squad.
Welcome, Esosa. Excited to have you. And it actually is pretty fitting because she's a very authentic person.
Yes.
So it feels like her nickname being really authentically her. It's perfectly fitting.
Yes, especially as we're getting into the authenticity of AI, the digital space, and, equity information.
Yes.
Every episode, we always hear what AI has to say. Esosa and the Onyx Impact have their own chat, which is Aisha GPT. When we do our AI's take, we're usually going with one of the traditional bigger platforms here. But for this episode, we're actually going to get two AI's takes.
Yeah, first ever time.
Yeah,
we're ever taking two AI takes right now. So we're going to listen from Gemini's perspective and then Aisha's perspective
on AI and information equity.
According to Gemini, AI's perspective on information equity is complex. While AI has the potential to democratize information and provide personalized support, it also poses significant risks. Biases embedded in training data can lead AI systems to perpetuate and even amplify existing societal inequalities, impacting access to opportunities in areas like hiring, healthcare, and education. Ensuring information equity with AI requires a concerted effort to develop diverse and representative datasets, implement transparent and accountable AI systems, and empower users with AI literacy to critically evaluate its outputs. According to Aisha, AI and information equity is rooted in the idea that technology should help close, not widen, gaps in access to reliable, relevant information. For Black communities, information equity means having the power to find, share, and shape narratives that reflect lived experiences, history, and needs, without being drowned out by misinformation or bias. AI can be a tool for justice if it's designed and used with intention, amplifying Black voices, surfacing trustworthy sources, and countering harmful narratives. But if left unchecked, AI can also reinforce existing disparities by spreading biased data, prioritizing dominant perspectives, or making it harder for marginalized communities to be heard. The goal is to use AI to empower, not erase. That means building systems that center Black expertise, protect against disinformation, and make sure everyone has a fair shot at the truth. That's the mission behind the Digital Green Book and Onyx Impact, using tech to fight for information equity, not just access.
Esosa, what do you have to say about it?
What we're dealing with from an information equity perspective is one of the biggest kind of issues happening right now in the AI space, right? How do we make sure that, one, people have access to enough information, and two, that information is properly taken into account, the different perspectives of different communities, right? And I see Gemini's answer, which is, I guess, fine. It's talking about the ability to democratize information and the risks involved amplifying existing social inequities and ensuring information equity, et cetera, et cetera. All right, that's fine. But y'all know I love Aisha's answer.
What, the creator loves their creation's answer? Oh, okay. Big surprise there. Yes, no, but that's great.
Yeah, obviously, Aisha's answer has a lot more reference and detail and tailoring towards the community.
I love the fact that she's talking about Black folks in the first sentence, right? The potential to either widen or close information gaps, especially for Black communities. And instead of saying that there's a significant risk, like Gemini said, I think, Aisha's perspective that like this actually has the potential to do the exact opposite of what we think it will do. And the fact that Aisha is like, we need Black experts. Immediately.
Yeah, that's what stood out to me the most. Yeah.
Exactly. And so the last point that she made, which is so important, about how it's fundamentally necessary for Black communities to have control of our own narrative and control of our own stories. I think that we are going to see that become a larger and larger and larger issue as we see social media and AI and technology continue to amplify incorrect information, amplify harmful narratives, and try to both erase our history and redefine and retell a version of Black history that is fundamentally flawed.
I was surprised that neither of them really went to just AI in general. I think does help with empowering the community, not necessarily just talking about these platforms itself. I'm talking about AI as an actual tech that we now have access to. It's a tool that does allow us to democratize in ways that we wouldn't have before.
I think I prefer Aisha's answer, not necessarily including that, because if Aisha is a tool that's serving Black communities, she's still a tool. Whether or not they are actually going to empower disempowered communities is going to depend on how much people have access to them, how much people can use them. So often, new pieces of technology are supposedly leading to more empowerment. But what ends up actually happening is they help a lot of rich people get more rich.
Yeah, it's the implementation.
Yes.
And I get what you're saying. Yeah. And I think for me, that's why Lana and I, especially on every episode, we're always weighing the pros and the cons. And I'm like, yes, there are all of these, biases, hallucinations. There's issues that do come with AI, and there's the bad AI actors. But then I also look and see how much the good outweighs it as well. There's so much opportunity there for disenfranchised communities to build things like this, to access other entrepreneurial spaces. That's why I'm always torn to what you're saying, which I think is the key factor of this whole entire conversation, is the accessibility and the implementation.
It's interesting because one of the things about technology and the technology space that I'm super passionate about is our voices, because whoever's creating the tech is controlling the narrative, even with the best of intention, because you're taking your beliefs and your perspective on the universe, right? And you're in many ways instilling it in the tech. And so that's actually something that really drives Aisha and I, is that we just wanted to create our own community of people being able to speak up about their values, their thoughts, their experiences, and make sure that the technology and the data for that technology is correct and true. So I really kind of commend you for sort of taking it upon yourself to create a safe space for your community. But I guess the question that I have for you, do you think all different types of communities are going to need to create their own? Is there going to be the Latino GPT? Or do you think it's your way of creating a safe space first, but that your real goal is that this information gets really ultimately fed into the mainstream vehicles so that that information is then more widely available for multiple people? From my perspective, I always want people who do not know about my background and culture to have the information correct. But I'm just kind of curious about what your thoughts are about that.
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful question and really, really, really important. How I see it is that a lot of problems that we think are new are actually not new. False and misleading information has been used to distort and suppress Black voices and Black communities since the dawn of time. Disinformation is as old as white supremacy. And so the idea that our stories can be erased is not new. The new technology that allows for our stories to be erased in a much more significant, especially if we are talking about large language models that are going to become the centers of information writ large, right? If you don't own your own story, somebody else will. If Black folks don't own our story, somebody else will. And they'll monetize it, they'll distort it, or they'll delete it to meet their end goal, to your point, whether or not that is their intention. We know that large language models are working on encyclopedia level versions of white history, right? And Wikipedia versions of Black history, right? And we see the amount of distortion because of that. This is important for all types of folks, not just Black folks, but, Onyx Impact is a nonprofit, right? Our goal is not a commercial goal. Our goal is to empower Black communities, and that will require other language models being able to use the data that Aisha has. Not to say that Aisha is not going to be able to grow massively. The potential for Aisha is unlimited. We know the power of Black consumers. If it's a situation where other large language models just aren't understanding Black folks in the way that they should be, right? That's going to become a problem. We've seen that became a problem as ads. Digital ads became so big. They're like, oh, we can't target Black folks correctly because we actually don't know enough about them, right? And so I'm hoping that Aisha will be a way to help that. But I am concerned. We're not trying to, at Onyx Impact, determine people's truth, right? We are trying to find sources that can be trusted by everybody, right? And try to make sure that the ecosystem has access to as many trusted sources as possible. It's a purely democratized large language model information ecosystem, right? Means that each one of those nodes has its own version of what truth is.
Just circling back around to what Lana was saying, when we're looking at other communities, what are the facts for all different types of cultures? And so do you feel more people from each of those communities need to have their vetted, fact-checked GPT? And if so, is it then marketing that then people who are not from those communities know to go there for the facts? How do they then know, okay, I need to use Aisha?
That's a great question and a needed one. And that's actually our second question, right? That we're dealing with. Our first question is, how do we make sure that Black folks have access to the information they need and that our reality isn't being distorted?
Sorted.
Right?
Yeah.
Because disinformation works on everybody. Our brains work in a very similar manner, and that is that the more times that you hear something, the more likely you are to believe it's true, right? Our brains will substitute repetition for truth almost every single time. And in an age of amplification, where a social media app can show you a lie 20 times a day, it's never been easier to convince people of things that aren't true. And so when we talk about how information gets distorted for our own communities, we've got to make sure that there is good information, better information. That's why we are so big on people following Black news. And yes, you are correct that this needs to be broader. How do we make sure that these other large language models are using Aisha type of information, right? It's less about, hey, make sure you go to Aisha, and more about, hey, all the other systems, y'all need to do this better. You've all, I'm sure, used ChatGPT way too quick. Like, ChatGPT gets way too comfortable. Like, hey, girl, what's going on? And I'm like, I asked you about the weather tomorrow. What is this, right? Like it's cultural insensitivity, but go ahead.
Ultimately comes down to data, right? Because the data that you feed the system is going to really impact what the system puts in the output.
Yeah.
So we need the data from different groups and different voices. If there's only one perspective, then that's all it can regurgitate back to you. But that all takes information, education, and data.
It's both the data and the intention. You know, if you fed Aisha a ton of negative anti-Black content, like she's not going to become more anti-Black. She's going to look at each and every one of us like, that's not serving Black people. That's not serving Black people. That's not serving Black people. Whereas the exact opposite will often happen for other LLMs. And so the intention is incredibly important in these conversations. And that's why it takes Black engineers, Black tech folks in these conversations and building these models to be able to handle them effectively.
At what moment did this really spark for you? What was that experience where you felt that we need to create this and now?
Like a lot of things, I think it happened over the course of decisions, right? I think we all remember early this year when, you know, 20 executive orders were dropping every day and nobody knew what was going on. And it was just like chaos. And chaos, as an information expert, we've studied how governments in other countries like use chaos, how they use the media, and I'm looking at this environment and saying, okay, one, this is not new. Two, people need to understand, one, what is happening and how to combat it, right? And that was the entire impetus for the digitalgreenbook.org. How do we protect our truth, protect our kids, and protect our culture in this time of chaos? As a component of that, I wanted Black folks to be able to find the answers they were looking for much quicker, not just on, you know, any random fact, but also what is the actual impact on Black communities of X, of Y, of Z, because it was not something that was coming through in, you know, mainstream media at all. And so that was the impetus to create Aisha as just a model built by Black folks for Black folks to be able to answer these questions in this moment with a Black lens, so that you're not just saying, like, if you ask about how many jobs have been impacted, it's not just going to tell you a generic number. It's also going to tell you how that's impacted Black folks in particular. What surprised me, really, after we launched the Digital Green Book with Aisha was just the response, and the engagement was just massive.
We talk about disinformation, we talk about echo chambers, but it's all coming down from the underlining data that's on the model. So for when you were building Aisha, for example, how were you going about to gather the information that you're using to ultimately empower your model to give the perspective on what you believe, you know, is the accurate, true, that's not
That's the fact check.
the fact-checked information, not the narratives that are being pushed by this agenda or that agenda.
This is one of the best parts of Aisha because we know who Black folks trust, and a lot of Black folks, Black community, they trust Black news, like a lot. Black newspapers, even if they're not, you know, following them all the time, like if someone is asking them about, like, you know, the level of trust that they have in their own Black newspaper, it's actually fairly high. And I think that Black newspapers in particular have been at the forefront of distilling and pushing back on disinformation that is targeting Black communities in particular for generations. That's why we started with Aisha. Some of the first things we did was we fed a ton of Black national news, Black local news, right? We wanted her to get a sense of, like, here are the types of sources that we believe are trustful, that have had a long and storied history of covering Black voices, Black views, and defending Black voices and Black views. You need all types of data, right? You need visual data, you need videos. You know, our team of Black researchers, they got a ton of time to spend on figuring out what can we find that's, you know, a good representation of Black excellence. What does Black joy look like? So that we could not just define it, but show this model, like, what examples are over the course of weeks, who, like, Black icons that we liked, that we didn't like, what have you. It was less about us and more about the broader kind of Black community. And that's how we went about figuring out how to kind of create something that was built on sources that we could trust.
Well, you've clearly done a good job because you got Rihanna following you. You are making an impact.
Onyx Impact.
An Onyx Impact. And I think that just shows your efforts to be a voice for the Black community is being acknowledged, because other voices in the community are speaking up and celebrating what you built.
receiving that, a lot of viral moments. And it makes a lot of sense when you answered with, as soon as you said Black news, I was like, wait, duh, Aisha. This makes a lot of sense because when you think about what ChatGPT and Gemini and all of the other general LLMs are dealing with right now, the ones that are mainstream and popular, they were pulling their data from mainstream news. I want to just touch on that a little bit because we talk about echo chambers here
Yes, we do.
all the time, where you tap into one element of information and then the algorithm and the AI just starts feeding you more of that, where then you really can't tell, truth from false or what's a vetted source of information versus what's opinion. What do people, the Black community and every other day people, what should they look for to determine if something is feeding them information that is not sourced properly?
That is actually, the whole purpose of the full digital green book, right? When you go to digitalgreenbook.org and you can see exactly these types of steps and like really simple, easy to understand cards. Like one of the things that we know to watch out for are, the comment sections and just headlines, right? This is not news, but what is news is that like 42% of social online traffic are malicious bots, primarily in comment sections and headlines. 42%. If people knew that 42% of what they saw in comment sections was actually not true, that would completely reshape our understanding of what conversations are actually happening. If something is eliciting a strong negative reaction the second you see it, your first step should be to pause. Always. Just pause and double check, regardless of your political leaning. There is no faster way to spread mis or disinformation online than through salacious, highly engaging, incredibly incorrect data that everyone gets got on. And people take advantage of this. So being wary of that type of emotional manipulation is really, really, really incredibly important. And then looking for sources and evidence. The more controversial a topic is, the more you need to make sure that they are giving you some type of source and evidence, not just saying that they are an expert, right? I don't care how many degrees they have. Are they giving you legitimate sources? And do they have peer-reviewed evidence of any type? The impact and power of chaos that we're currently also seeing happening, right? This is a tool. This is a tactic that is being deployed against us to make it harder for us to know what's real and what's true, to make it more likely that we freeze because too much is going on, to make it easier to wield power in moments of chaos. We've got to be careful to not contribute to that uncertainty, right? We've got to be really careful about what we share and why we're sharing it. Are you amplifying something outrageous that most people already know? Like one of the most important things for people to be amplifying and uplifting right now are fact checks from news sources. And it's not cool, but it actually really, really, really helps your own community's feed. So in times of uncertainty, how are you making sure that you're not accidentally contributing to that uncertainty?
What would you say for you is the most frustrating thing about what you're hearing of AI in general? Not just on the Black community equity side, but the bigger dynamics of, AI in this revolution.
I think, frustrated by two things. One, the idea that we can't push back or control our data in this moment. That seems like a massive problem that we can't solve. How we make sure that our data is protected, how do we make sure their kids are protected, right? Other countries are creating whole systems around how to make sure that AI can grow at the speed it needs to without harming everyone super quickly. And so one of the more frustrating things is like there's nothing we can do about it. We have made all of these platforms billionaires. Let's take some of that back. Two, I think there's obviously a lot of folks that are very against generative AI for very, very, very good reason. That is a very valid position to take. And I also think that we've kind of got to understand that how much is already being run by generative AI and how much will be every single year. And I think right now we need to figure out how to make sure that specific communities are not left behind in this new kind of revolution of information reality, our economy.
Yeah, we're really big on digital literacy here. We've been talking about it more now than ever.
It's also about your own level of discernment and critical thinking.
Mhm.
We can have all the tools and all the tech, but it's about how you interact with it and what you take away. And to Esosa's point, if you're reading something online, on social media, on a website or whatever, a news source, also thinking about the intention, who the writer is, what their opinion is, because there's opinion baked into it.
Mhm.
Right. And that's part of what you're saying with the headlines and one, they're trying to sell. People want views, people want eyeballs, people want to make money. There's a lot of different motives behind how information is provided to our community. But then it is also our responsibility to distill that information. How do you decipher? And I think that that's something that's going to become more and more powerful.
I 100% agree. And, I also think that there is going to have to be a reckoning with these social media companies on what they are doing to folks and the types of things they're allowing. There's a critical thinking that's obviously necessary, right? But there is also a need to hold these social media companies and folks accountable for what they are saying. But I do agree that the level of education needed, and I like calling it digital fluency and thinking of it from everyone needs to grow to be fluent. How do we teach our kids from a young age what is on social media? How do we talk to them about how much biased content there is, how much racist content there is? How do we get them to question what they see online? How do we teach them about propaganda? How do we teach them about sharing personal information or cyberbullying? Or Black kids, hey, you're going to see a lot of people that are talking about beauty that don't look like you. And that is an algorithmic bias. And it's not true and it's not real, right? And then part of what we have to do is actually make sure our kids are following folks that don't have that bias. But again, go to digitalgreenbook.org. There's a whole card on protecting our kids that goes through how do we kind of create this digital fluency, digital literacy? What types of steps do we have to go through? Because it's such an important conversation, and it's hard. We all know what our parents be sending us, in our family chat groups about what they think is real or not.
That's an interesting point that the older generation, I mean, we're always here focusing on the next generation and kids, but a lot of the older generation didn't grow up with this tech, and a lot of this tech wasn't first used for them. So they're also getting a lot of misinformation that they can't tell the difference with. No, that's a scam. You're being catfished. We naturally know these things. It's that age tech aspect of it. I want to make sure that we also touch on some hope here.
Yes.
And Esosa Osa, as we're wrapping up, fast forwarding for 5 years from now, what is your dream of where Aisha could go and where the digital information, bias, literacy, all of those things for the Black community looks like? What's that 5-year dream from now?
I want Aisha and Onyx Impact to be thought of at their very core, here to support Black people, here to empower Black people. Have we in 5 years helped create healthier online environments and communities for Black folks? How many Black people have we been able to help? Have we gotten people to use Aisha? I think this is why I love doing this work from a nonprofit standpoint, because we can just be mission driven. Our success is not a product of how many Aishas we sell or what have you, right? But it's how much have we been able to help our community navigate this new environment, grow this new environment, create hope in this new environment, right? And so that is what my ultimate vision is. My whole career, it's been about how do we create brighter communities for little Black girls to live in? That's always what I've wanted to do, right? That's why I've gotten into voting rights, into advocacy, into disinformation, into this world. And so the closer I get to that ultimate goal, I think the better.
I think that's important. And I hope that encourages all of our listeners. You have a voice, you have an opinion, you have beliefs, you have value. That's something that I am super passionate about, Aisha's super passionate about, and what we want to bring into people's experience with technology and AI specifically, but just all forms. And I'm really thankful for you, Esosa, taking the time to talk to us about this very important conversation about how diverse voices need to be present as we grow in this very quickly, fast-paced tech world that we're in.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm so grateful for y'all, for everything that y'all are doing, for the community that y'all have created and grown. Podcasts like AI Checks are just fundamentally needed in these types of moments, in these types of really incredible changes in our society and our culture. So thank you all.
Thank you so much for joining. Thanks to our listeners for listening. Make sure that you subscribe, follow, all the things. And what else, Lana?
And don't forget to grab the merch.
All right, y'all. Take care. Bye.
Listen to the AI Chicks on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Video episodes are available on Patreon. And check out our socials at The AI Chicks.